think if ever Steven Spielberg considered retiring, I think now is the time because Disclosure Day, his latest movie, is one piece of shit film. This is the last picture with Rahim Khan, and I have to say, as blasphemous as this may sound, I've never been a big fan of Spielberg. I know that he's considered one of the great American filmmakers, and sure, he has some very impressive movies under his belt, but I guess the same kind of the same excitement that is maybe elicited by his name in others barely evokes, I would say, sort of on an EKG machine, barely a blip for me. I mean, there's just nothing about him as a filmmaker that excites him. I don't know. Maybe it's because he hasn't had like a great blockbuster since like the 90s. Because his work in the 2000s, like over the past 20 years, has been varied for sure. I mean, Minority Report, AI, Munich, The Fablemans, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, and now Disclosure Day. It's been, I mean, that same bag of tricks, at least when it comes to the genres, but nothing close to the heights, at least, that he had achieved with other movies, like, for example, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jaws, Jurassic Park. I can't include Schindler's List in this because this is that kind of movie. But whoever this man is right now, this Spielberg, he is a shade of his former self. He has produced a movie that is at once boring, uninteresting, and begs the question, why was it even made? I will say this. When I did learn that we were getting a new movie from him, I think this was like late last year, earlier this year, like somewhere around January, when I did like the most um the most expected movies of 2026. I was excited because this is again a genre that he's returning to, aliens, of course, which he has revisited time and time again over his career. And with the cast that it was boasting, Emily Blunt, Coleman Domingo, Jack O'Connor, um, Eve Hewson, and of course Colin Firth. I was like, okay. Despite the mystery that surrounded the project, I think the title kind of gave it away, Disclosure Day. And then, of course, I had the misfortune of watching the trailer, which I have to say gives away the entire fucking movie. And I hate watching trailers. I don't watch trailers. But again, there it was, playing before I watched He-Man last week. Uh, Scripted by David Cohen, who I've spoken about a lot of the times on this very show for writing like such good stuff like Black Bag by Steven Soderbergh, but then going and writing shit like Jurassic World Rebirth, and then doing another movie like Cold Story, which he did earlier this year. And now you have this. I think this guy certainly has a lot of ideas sort of rummaging up here, but he needs to give it a fucking break because honestly, man, this movie stank. It was a unnecessary movie, unnecessary in its runtime, unnecessary in so many parts, whether it's its characters or its set pieces, that I think, and I think I'll even do this at the end of the show, on how I would have written it. And I know that's very presumptuous of me, having never written a script. But I mean, it kind of was there staring me in the face. Okay, so the movie starts off, and this is the funniest part about it, in that it starts off almost in passing Like it's not even like, the most important thing, referring to a potential buildup of what's it called? Tensions between the US and Russia. I mean, it's the first time, I mean, they announced over sort of like, in the news that it's the first time since I think the Cuban Missile Crisis that America has gone to DEFCON 2. So the world is poised to, sort of for World War III. In all of this, you have this mysterious organization headed by Colin Firth, who I need to see a lot more of. It's a shame I don't see more of this guy on thing because I like the guy, great voice, um, who is apparently trying to recover these items from a former employee played by Jack O'Connor, whose girlfriend, Eve Hewson, has been kidnapped by Colin Firth's character. Um, this cat and mouse thing starts between them, where they manage to escape. He's hot on their tail. Apparently, Colin Firth, as a private contractor, as this industry, has been gatekeeping knowledge, which you can kind of surmise is about the existence of aliens. And along with the US government and its various departments, they've been colluding to keep this knowledge that's existed for the past like almost 80 years away from the public. This knowledge, of course, includes, and some spoilers, of course, the existence of extraterrestrials, reverse engineering their technology, and of course, the existence of both living and non-living biologicals, actual little green men, in this case, they're gray men. And it seems that sort of Spielberg can't get over that one prototypical alien design, the little gray men, the big beady eyes, gigantic head, completely effect body. I don't think he can get over that because across his movies, we've seen one kind of alien, whether it was in E.T. or the aliens in Crystal Skull, or even the ones that we see in AI. He just loves it. I don't know, he just likes that design. Or maybe our alien overlords are exactly what they look like because there's like, I was going to say a subtle sort of propaganda element to this movie, but it's not so subtle. I'll talk about that in a second. Into this mix, we have Emily Blunt's character, and I have to say, I like Emily Blunt because of Live, Die, Repeat. But in this movie, she really needs to like tone it down because like her character, her performance borders on the histrionic. There's this one scene after surviving this wholly unnecessary death-defying moment, which this movie really shouldn't have had. She's like, she has a panic attack, and it's just too much. Okay, so thrown into mix, you have her and Wyatt Russell, who, as I said about this movie, is a part of this long list of superficialities or just unnecessariness, if that's even a word. Like, why in God's name do we have all of these subplots, secondary characters who don't really amount to anything at the end of the day? Okay, sorry, I digress. Okay, so we have her thrown into the mix, who after this run-in with a cardinal, a bird, suddenly develops these talents. She's telepathic. She can speak. She can speak. She's a polyglot. Yeah, and all of that stuff. And okay. Third character in this movie, fourth or at least somebody plays an integral part, is Coleman Domingo's character, who, as I was telling my friend while watching the movie, or at least after we came out, never speak during the film itself, is like sort of woke liberal America. Honestly, he's like this smarmy, self-righteous character who is never far away from a soliloquy or proselytizing speech. It's like sort of, we can do better. Empathy. Aliens are our friends. I mean, that's definitely the message they're trying to sort of feed us in this film. Okay. So that's all of that. Okay, cool, whatever. And over the course of the next 2.5 hours, we get these really limp action scenes, which again have no place in this movie. This endless sort of cat and mouse stuff. It's just and you can kind of guess it by the first hour mark that all of this is building up to this gigantic sort of finale. And by that, I don't mean sort of in scale. I just mean in terms of reveal. Because again, the name of the movie is Disclosure Day, right? They have to like prep us for when it actually happens. And this is a good, trial run or dress rehearsal, if you will. So honestly, if you wanted to, okay, sorry, I've been talking for the past 12 minutes and I haven't even sort of gotten to that part. Should you watch this in a cinema? Should you stream it or should you skip it? Again, not available on streaming yet. It's in a cinema or skip it. And you know what? Hard fucking pass. Do not watch this movie. It is not worth your time. Really. If and when it does come up on, online for, maybe you want to watch it. Maybe you want to watch it, skip to the end. Because there's nothing over the course of your 2 hours that is even remotely Spielbergian, exciting, interesting. I have no idea what the budget for this movie is or was. I'm sure it was quite a bit, but nothing. I mean, you'd imagine that there'd be something slightly interesting. Instead, we get these lame ass car chases, right? This one scene that again makes no sense because the thing is that okay, so it's Emily Blunt's character and it's Josh O'Connor's character, Jack O'Connor, Josh O'Connor, whatever his name is, and they're slowly being pushed by this henchman into this oncoming rail car, right? And you can clearly see from this top-down thing that she could have easily swerved this way and gotten out of the way. But no, forces the car into the thing and it's dragged. And then this whole Indiana Jones type scene where they have to jump onto the ladder. Why? If this is meant to be like a thinking man's thriller, I could have seen you doing a lot more. But we'll get to that in a second. You're then building up to, of course, the final reveal, which is essentially, and spoilers ahead, because what Coleman Domingo's character and Jack O'Connor's character and their merry band want to do, who are all former employees of Colin Firth, is they want to tell the public that it's high time you learned that there are aliens, we are not alone, blah, 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 blah. Right? So they finally get their moment in the spotlight where there's Emily Blunt telling the world that, yes, aliens exist. Here is this ton of footage that we have. And then here's another ridiculous spoiler, but whatever. Coleman Domingo's character rolls out an alien in a wheelchair. And there he is. And I think, honestly, that is perhaps the most interesting part of the movie, in that the actual disclosure part is the only thing worth sitting through, because it's on live television. It's suddenly being broadcast. Everyone in sort of the production up there, they're trying to figure out, wait, what is it? Is this real? Should we release it? Get in touch with them. And it's going out. And they're slowly disseminating this. And then as it starts to sort of get out there, everyone, whether on their phones or in front of the TV or on a bus or sort of on Main Street, they're just frozen, they're transfixed because this is happening, right? That, I think, was well done. Everything else about this movie was not. Like, if you want to build, like, for example, him trying to embrace maybe modern technology, we see two instances where it fails completely. In the first opening scene, you have this POV shot of a wrestler getting like sort of clotheslined and pile drive and stuff like that. Why? It serves no purpose in this movie. In another scene where where O'Connor's character has to sort of like, creep up on all of these goons and maybe steal a car, you're amazed that none of them know how to secure a perimeter because there he is, like from like almost 500 meters out, who's creeping up on them. And nobody bothers to look behind. And you have this drone come in and it's kind of weaving in and out of a fence. And it's just like sort of, again, an unnecessary use of this technology in a movie that is wholly unnecessary itself. Wyatt Russell's character, the boyfriend, is introduced. You think he's going to play somewhat of a pivotal role, and then he's literally discarded by the wayside. We never see him again until like an hour and a half later, where there's just like a reaction shot. Eve Hewson's character, who was, I think, included because apparently she doesn't, not apparently, she plays a former nun or a novitate, like she didn't become a nun, but there's supposed to be like sort of this element of faith in the face of this revelation, which is okay. I've had this conversation with other people as well about sort of how religion would stand up in the face of aliens. But again, a character we didn't need. We have like this one henchman who kind of has a role, but it's not much of a role. Like they don't do much with him. At the end, out of frustration, like when sort of Emily Blunt's character finally gets to like the news desk, he turns in frustration to Colin Firth's character and says, "Are we going to let this happen?" or something like that. And Colin Firth, there he is, he's just like resigned to his, he's like, "Fuck it, man, I can't be bothered anymore." He's just like slumped in his chair. And then all the henchmen sort of in protest walk out. Like, what have we dedicated our lives to? So stupid. Like, so much of this movie is so, again, I keep on using this word, unnecessary. I'm thoroughly disappointed in Spielberg. I'm thoroughly disappointed in Cohen. But then, again, for someone who wrote Jurassic World Rebirth, I don't know. But I mean, for somebody of Spielberg's standing, I'm amazed that when he was presented with this script, he wasn't like, okay, let us trim all of this fat. Here we have Disclosure Day, right? Let us maybe perhaps take this, place it here, maybe somewhere at the opening, or say, for example, in the first half an hour mark, where here, or place it here, right? Disclosure Day has happened. Then, with the help of flashbacks, we revisit, we learn the stories of Josh O'Connor, Colin Firth, Emily Blunt, and Colman Domingo's characters. And then we deal with sort of the aftermath of all of this, because that is something that Colin Firth's character is warning about. Even Eve Hewson's character is in that sort of, in revealing this to the world, we will sort of undermine our religious, cultural, societal structures. So that is something that I think is worth exploring on film, which I hope that this movie will explore. It doesn't. Instead, it sort of almost as like, a passing thought deals with World War III, because it's kind of put to us that humanity, almost like in Watchmen, is on the brink of like, sort of annihilation. And by revealing this, we suddenly have this kumbaya moment and we'd be like, yeah, man, let's not fight anymore. Or like as Ozymandias did, he presented a third party threat, which led the US Russian bonhomie. It doesn't do that because just because, like, we don't know, very frankly, what the intentions of these fucking are. Like, they don't come off as, like, benign. I mean, sure, if Coleman Domingo sings that same tune of, like, how they're empathic beings and they only want, like, our betterment and stuff like that. But when they're kind of like, I'm not saying they anally probe children, but when they did that psychologically invasive procedure on the two kids, the spoiler, you're like, you know what? These guys are kind of fucking creepy. Uh, it just, it's so half baked. Again, in a movie that's 2.5 hours long. I just really wish that they had stuck with a single idea and ran with it rather than have all of these different things that turn it into this really flabby sort of movie that lacks that sort of takes away focus from the central thing, which is Disclosure Day itself. And now, if you will, I will get into sort of conspiracy realm. I'll sort of get a little conspiratorial. It's interesting because on this very channel, I spoke about a movie which I don't think many of you have watched, but most definitely should. And that is this documentary that was put out last year, October of last year. And it was called The Age of Disclosure. Why I found that movie to be so interesting is that it doesn't have Mr. X alien chaser as one of the talking heads or some random like fucking, kook. It has everyone up to like Marco Rubio, congressmen, senators, DOD, Air Force, PhDs, anyone you can name it. Like, it has such an impressive list of talking heads that, short of it being like a US government sponsored, funded, backed documentary, I don't know how they could have pulled it off. And it was almost felt like, because again, the documentary goes well out of its way to confirm that yes, aliens do exist, or extraterrestrials, or UAPs, or whatever you want to call them. All the world governments have been, in many ways, interacting with them, reverse engineering their technology, trying to at least, and have, just been there. It's there. It's a truth. And I even said this at the time, that is a almost perfect, like, sort of primer to sort of telling the public that yes, this is real. And a movie like this does the exact same thing. Because unlike, for example, The X-Files or any number of sort of shows that have dealt with nefarious alien, beings from another world, this movie almost makes a case that, like, you know what? If and when that day comes, do not be shocked, do not be alarmed, because apparently they come in peace. Which, and I credit my friend for this joke, there's that scene at the end where you do have the alien, the wheelchair-ridden alien, turn to Josh O'Connor's character and does its whole sort of verbal communication thing, which is like a series of like clicks or whatever the fuck that is. And then he turns to translator Emily Blunt. And after all of that, it's like at least a 5-second whisper. She says, listen. Like, it could have been better. And the joke my friend cracked was, we have not come in peace. It's kind of funny. But yeah, a thoroughly, thoroughly disappointing movie. And like Indy, who at the end of his, last movie hangs up his hat, I think it's time to Spielberg to take a nice long vacation.